Okay, welcome. Welcome to the Lean In podcast, where we like to lean into different topics and different ideas and different cool things. This is the very first episode. My name is Ryan Crabtree, and I'm here joined by my co-host, Joel Cooper.
Hi,
Um,
hi, it's me. I'm Joel.
and we were just talking earlier. This is probably going to be crap. This is our first podcast that we're hosting. Um,
You can't say this to
so
an audience just as they're about to consume a podcast. You can't start a podcast with, "Oh
it's
yeah,
crap.
this is
It's
gonna be so
dumb.
bad."
Stop listening, please. Please, for the love of God. um, so yeah, I guess we'll just start with I I feel like I need to a reminder, Joel. What were we gonna talk about?
Introduce yourself, Ryan. Who are you? I don't
Oh
know who you
yeah,
are. Who is this man?
I don't know who I am a lot of the time, but uh, no,
Man needs to get to the point.
um, yeah, I'm a counseling student, a lover of art, a um, I like new ideas. I like learning new things, and I like uh, just exercising. Any sort of exercise, I'll try to put my heart and soul into it. So um, I see that, Joel. I see. um, so yeah, and I'm just keen on talking with my friend Joel here about whatever we would like to talk about. So
Alright, so
yeah.
that introduction really sucked. So now we're gonna have a good introduction.
Yeah. All right. Well, take it away.
So my name is Joel. I'm 22 years of age. So is Ryan. He forgets his age. Big boomer. Um, so yeah, I'm Ryan's a counselling student. I'm a law student. So what a combination of craft. I love sports. I love video games, which is very relevant for today's podcast.
Mhm.
I love technology and all things that, and I love telling stories. Isn't that nice, Ryan? That
I love that part about you, Joel. Like, I love it.
I'm so
Okay.
keen to talk about Dungeons and Dragons on this podcast at some point, but you're gonna have to wait for that. So, hey, subscribe.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about the why, because a lot of people will be like, "What? Why are you doing this?" So, I mean, first of all, we came up with this idea in lockdown. It's now not lockdown.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
but I still haven't left the house, so there's still a reason for this podcast. Mental lockdown.
Mental
um,
lockdown. Yeah.
so this podcast we kind of see as being a means of furthering our friendship. Oh, it's so cute, right?
Yeah.
And and through that, creating something that we're proud of. We hope that this podcast will become a vehicle for us to talk about the changing world, things that are going on, and our changing lives as we mature into big boomers. Um, so yeah, by doing a podcast, we have to stay abreast of um, news stories and what's going on in the world, and that encourages us to push our horizons further and further and gain new knowledge. So yeah, knowledge, strength, and integrity, just like
Mm.
KSI. Okay, so peeps probably wondering if they don't know us, how we met, and that's such a crazy story
Mm.
that I'll let Ryan tell.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was really trying to pinpoint a exact time frame. Um, but I really couldn't pinpoint an exact memory because I think we had met briefly at in some cases, and I was like, oh, who wants to hear that? But like one of the like standout memories that I have of you, Joel, is when we went to see the Lorax together.
Can we tell this story on no?
Yeah, no, I'm sure we can. It just we hated it. We we both hated the movie, and we bonded over the hatred of this movie. I remember. we're in the car together. Like our parent, like I think our friend Seb's mum
Mm.
was driving us. I think Seb was up with us as well, and
He
we
probably
were
liked
just
it. Terrible person. But Seb,
yeah,
if you're watching
yuck.
this, come on the podcast as a guest. Talk about acting. All right, Ryan, continue.
Yeah, and I remember just a vivid memory of all of us just sitting in the car, just almost just like this, just really just. Ugh. And I remember Seth's mum, she was like, "Oh, so did you guys like the movie at all?" Or I think you went like, "Nah, hated it, worst thing ever." Um,
Sounds like me.
and I was like, "Oh, somebody said it. Yes, I didn't like it either." Um,
I have a
yeah,
feeling that Seb liked it. Seb, come on the podcast and defend your terrible opinion of the
a
Lorax.
Lorax. Yeah, a great deal breaker of friendships. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we don't. Yeah, that's why we don't hang out. But if you want to come on the podcast, yeah,
um,
I that's such a funny memory because I'd forgotten about that. That was such a yeah. We bonded over that. And look, we're gonna now probably be using this podcast as a vehicle to share hatred of
mm,
movies and TV shows, not of people. We love people, um, but yeah, that's just such a funny thing because I feel like we've both remained strong critics of movies and TV, and we had
yeah,
bonded over
yeah.
that. And I don't know. I guess we bonded over the truth of the matter that the
Mm,
movie was bad. And then I guess that's what our podcast is going to be about. We're going to no
mm.
holding punches back. When we get to talk about Interstellar one day, I'm going to tell how bad that movie is.
Oh no, it's
Terrible.
a good movie. It's a good movie.
Save it for the podcast, Ryan.
This is podcast time.
Save it for the 17th podcast because I don't know if I could contain my anger that long. But I have a weird memory. Were you What's that game like kids used to play in high school, like Hand Ninja? Well, there's a name for it. You know when you're trying to hit the hands and it's like a
Oh,
turn-based game?
and is it like people in a circle?
Yeah. I can't
Yeah,
remember what that's
yeah.
called. Anyway, leave it in the comments. So
Was
did
this
you
at?
play
Oh
that
yeah,
on
we met
orientation?
at school, right? We met at school initially, and then,
What
or was
did
it?
you were you at orientation in for year 7?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Yeah,
I.
because I remember playing that game, and I swear you were there because we were laughing about real stupid stuff. But I might be confusing stories, but I feel like we clicked because of our weird nature,
Yeah, yeah.
which we're going to talk a bit about today with gaming, obviously. But
Mhm.
now, yeah, we've had an interesting friendship. We right through high school, modern history boys.
Oh
You
yes,
represent.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we still exchange memes, as all good grown men should do.
Mhm. You're
Um,
not a man if you're not sharing memes with the boys.
I thought you could be like, hold on, you don't get to categorize yourself as a man.
Joel, you're not a man, all
Did you
right?
just
This is
assume
the
my
man
gender?
podcast, and you're not a part of it.
You know what? I hate this. All right. So we're
Oh,
gonna move on
alright.
to um a bit of a segment we're gonna try to do every week. Where we're gonna talk about we're both gonna bring a fun fact to the
Yes.
podcast. Ryan, would you please share your fun fact for this week, the first podcast?
So I am just an avid lover of psychology facts and just these little things that you'll probably forget in like a day or so. You'll probably be like probably think about
Yeah,
it
that's
throughout the
me.
day and be like, yeah, be like, wow, it is pretty cool. Wow. And then you just kind of the next day it's like, all right, new day. I don't know what I was doing yesterday. Um, but
So
this
true though.
one this one was posted in Psychology Today, and it's about a research paper. Uh, it's pretty much about how most humans are on autopilot nearly half the time that you're conscious throughout the day, and like that number actually comes to about a 46.9% of the day you're running on autopilot. Um, yeah,
That is mad.
yeah, and
But
it's
when you
all
think
about.
about it, like that makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of things in a day that you then after kind of go, "What just happened? What did I just do?"
Yeah, yeah, and I think I think the term it's like similar to disassociating. Disassociating
Mm.
happens all the time. Little quick tidbit, another little add-on to that is that yeah, little sprinkle. Um, yeah, people are disassociating all the time. You know, think about when you're driving to work, even maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're kind of zoning out a bit. Um, your mind literally just is there to protect you, and if it's like something kind of boring, then it's just probably just going to be like, all right, this isn't actually that important for my survival. You know, that's not how it works.
But we need to
Oh, I mean,
contrast here because this podcast is very important for your survival. Sorry, I just need to
yes,
interject there and just
yeah,
make
this
sure
is a
that.
very survival podcast. You, I am literally breathing better because of this podcast.
Me
My
too.
lungs are working. My heart is pumping.
That was my heart.
Yeah. I thought that was just the gorilla in in you.
Hey, don't remind me about Harambe, man. I'm not over that.
Oh.
That is very interesting. My fun
Yeah.
fact is way less interesting.
Yes, let's hear it.
So I went because I thought Ryan would go down that route. So I was like, I'll bring a fact about gaming because we're going to talk about gaming today. To like balance it out, but now it just feels
Yes.
like a terrible fact. So when you hear this fact, you're going to be okay. I'm just going to go straight in.
Ooh,
45% of gamers in the United States in 2021 are female.
really?
That
But
surprised me.
what sort of games? Like, are
So
they meaning mobile games or
I assume we're including that in it, but I think this fact on its surface, it's like, yeah, okay, that's like about what you would expect in most activities that both genders seem to enjoy. But I kind of reflected on that fact and went, a lot of the games I play, kind of hardcore first person shooter kind of stuff, you very rarely run into females. Now, I feel like there's two theories on that. Either A, they don't play the games as much as a proportion of the player base, which I discount. I don't think that's true. Or like theory two, that I think is right, is that they're not using voice comps in game, and they're not openly being like, I'm a girl. Um, because there is like, I know, wow, we're getting real serious now, but there is like a massive problem in gaming
yeah.
surrounding harassment and like, and what people will say is a joke, but it's like, how sad is it that like 45% of our player base may not be comfortable using all the features of the game and interacting with the community? I thought that was pretty
Mm,
sad, just
mm,
reflecting on that.
mm. Yeah, I think I remember being in a what was it? I remember I used to play Modern Warfare 2 back in the day.
Oh,
When it first came out, I think well, I probably shouldn't have been playing it heaps, but I was playing it
he
a lot.
sucked.
Yeah, no, I was good. Okay, I would run around with a intervention and a Kimbo revolver and feel like the bomb. But I just remember, um, yeah, well, this is when the game first released, and um, there were a few girls on the online lobbies, and I remember just hearing as soon as one girl would be like, "Oh, hey guys, how's it going?" And then this is like just a bunch of Aussie dudes just going, "Oh, is that a girl there? Oh," and just getting really into it.
Is that a
And
gamer grill? And you're like,
yeah, is that a yeah, yeah,
And most guys in these games, we've uttered these words too. But it's like, I guess it's interesting to reflect on, like, it's not just like a meme for
mm,
for the female player base. It's like a lot of them, like, and some of my friends that I play with, especially in Valorant, will not make call outs in the voice chat because of how they've been treated. So
wow,
they'll talk to me in Discord and they'll say, "Can you call out blah?" And I've never really reflected on that as much and kind of gone, "Oh, that's interesting," but like, how sad.
mm,
I thought it
yeah,
was an
yeah, like
interesting thing that we definitely should talk about more on a different podcast. But
Mm,
It's sad that we're not more of an inclusive community.
mm. Yeah, and for me though, I wonder like where does that come from? Where does that sort of uh mindset of just guys just being like, oh, like, oh, let's get real up in this girl's face online,
Mm.
maybe like I'm thinking maybe it's because it's got that anonymity, whatever it's called. Like
Mm.
you're online, you've got this different username, and you're pretty much like a different person in a different context as well. And obviously, and look, there's harassment in the workplace as well, like sexual harassment in the workplace for women. So um,
They're getting hit on all fronts, and it's yeah. I guess what you're saying with it's not like it's a bit like these people like grown men are still we still talk like we're in high school, and it's like oh pretty girl and oh go talk to the
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
girl and be awkward. But you're doing it
yeah,
online and you're sitting in your boxes and you're 25. Like
yeah,
yeah, it's a
yeah.
interesting thing, but
Mm.
I thought it was interesting. All right, why don't we move on to our two quick news stories, and then we'll jump into the main topic of the day. So Ryan, what news story have you brought today?
Cool. Well, I brought in this. So there's a town near Rome, and they're selling old homes for $1, which is a trend.
Oh,
A
I
trend
heard
across the.
about this. Tell me more.
You
Tell
heard
me more,
about
because
this?
I've
Did you?
only just heard that like headline. Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, it's called the $1 House Project, which allows mayors of all small towns to put their empty properties up for sale just for literally $1. And yeah, and it's pretty much like a detail. It's like they're trying to keep the history of Italy. So, ancient Roman houses and ancient, like, just there's been so many other like cultures and everything that's evolved in Italy. So, like, to keep that alive, I think they just wanted to bring it out to the public, and so now it's like, all right, now the public can get together and restore these old houses and restore all these ancient uh, historical things. And I'm a lover of history, so I think it's a good thing to see.
Oh, I love history too. That's cool. But is it like so? Hold on. So they buy them to like bring them back up to standard, and they're not living in them, or they are living in them.
Um, from what I gather, like people do live in them, but some of them are pretty run down.
Mm.
Some of them, yeah, and are pretty in fairly remote villages. So, and they don't really have that many, commodities around. So it's not like maybe people will buy it for like a holiday house or something. Um, I think that's more likely the case. But yeah, I just found that pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that too. And we're both big history buffs, so I feel like we're going to be talking about a lot of that kind of stuff. Really cool.
Mm, mm,
I brought another gaming one. I'm such a nerd.
yes.
So court proceedings are continuing in the case of Apple against Fortnite, which I find fascinating that this is still going on. But the case concerns the split of money on the App Store between Fortnite and Apple. So Apple, I believe, I'm just quoting off the top of my head. I think Apple takes around 10 to 30% of the money spent on V-Bucks in Fortnite on the App Store. So this whole case is concerned Fortnite trying to get out of doing that. Uh, and then Apple kind of retaliating by taking them off the App Store, and that whole thing's kind of gone on. But I just think an interesting story about does Apple add enough value to the product of Fortnite in providing it across iOS to get 30% up to 30%?
And for you especially, like, you're a law student, so this sort of, these sort of proceedings and you kind of know this sort of. Do you feel like you understand more of the details, like the hidden details that are happening here?
I think it's mostly a contractual dispute. Um, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting one because if they've agreed to terms, it's there's a couple ways the law is going to allow them to escape those terms and make kind of start again. But uh, I don't know. I don't think Apple really provides 30% of value. But I guess you're looking at Fortnite wants to get it out on the iOS platform. Is it? Let's be honest. You're not really putting much effort into. That sounds real bad, but like the money that's spent on Fortnite is like a lot of cosmetic and battle pass kind of things. I see it as a win for Fortnite being on the App Store in its outright because people seem to spend like they're making millions of dollars off the App Store of Fortnite. So yeah, maybe if they agree to new terms, they'll get a better cut. But that's just a lot of interesting legal things going on with gaming that we'll talk about on another podcast. But I thought that was
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
to kind of talk about. Do you get enough value to pay that much? All right.
Mm.
I think we've done the longest podcast intro in history, but it was really good. I think, and if you think it's really good, you should do all of the things like liking and subscribing and following. And if
Mhm,
you thought it was
mhm.
bad, you should do those things as well, like because your opinion sucks.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's that's the tagline for Lean In. Your opinion sucks.
I actually don't mind it. We might add it to the marketing.
Might actually add yeah, that's pretty good.
So lean in podcast. Today we're going to be leaning in to video games, but specifically we're going to be talking about how gaming has affected Ryan and I as people, as yeah, oh, very very deep. So Ryan, why don't you kick us off? Give us some kind of substance to this discussion. Tell me about
Well,
your experience of gaming.
hmm, well, it's been a part of my life for my entire life, actually. Like, it's been I think I played my first video game that I remember playing was Age of Empires 1 on the computer,
Mm.
on the old, Windows 95 computer. Um,
We're gonna have to relive that because Age of Empires 4 is coming out in like a month,
ooh,
so we might have to relive that.
we could stream that.
Oh, don't get me excited, Ryan. What about Age of
Um,
Empires drew you to it in that type of game?
um, I've just always had a fascination with armies and military, and I guess I don't know, just fairly standard for like a guy. I know a lot of guys grew up with army toys and that sort of thing, and yeah, I just remember I would get into the map editor, and then I would just place like I'll go remove everything on the map, and I'll just be a flat grass plain, and then halfway, so it'd just be half of the map is blue, of just filled with units, different sort of units, and then the other half is red, different other units as well. And then I'll just like sit there and just watch them like just battle it out in
You'd hit the
5
simulate
frames a
button and be
second.
like, "Let's go."
Yeah, yeah. And I'd sit there for like 5 frames a second, just like, oh, totally absorbed into this. Um and then yeah, I just kept on playing that um and I think just throughout my life it's been on and off. It uh hasn't been my main focus with my life, but it's really I actually think it's a lot of guys like, and I feel like you can relate to this, Joel, that uh a lot of guys nowadays, we bond over video games. We bond and
Yep.
play video games together. And and as I get older in life, I find that more and more relevant and more important, actually. And it doesn't even matter if we have this hectic conversation, or just like you know, most of the time that I play games with guys or anybody, it's just kind of like, oh, hey, how you going? Yeah, good. How you going? Yeah, good. All right, you want to play this? Yeah, let's do it. And it's fun. It's just uh, it's it kind of gives that sense of connection for me, and it kind of gives that sense of um, we're doing something together. And
Mm.
yeah, I love that. You know, I'm fairly kinesthetic. I love um, action and movement and that sort of thing. So yeah, doing that with people is awesome.
Is it like, would you say it's more for you? Is it more of a hobby and strictly just a hobby, or is it like an escape? Where's the line for
Ooh,
you?
that's a good question. I think in high school I used it to escape a little bit. I would play games on my own a lot of the time. Not a lot of the time, but um,
It's okay, Ryan. I played games a lot by myself during that time. It's okay, Ryan. We
yeah,
can admit these
yeah.
things.
Oh, okay. I thought I was the only one. um, no, yeah, it's yeah. I remember I was escaping a lot in high school. I would play. I think I was playing all sorts of games, but I remember I played Planet Side 2
Oh
and
yeah.
Rocket League on my own, and yeah, I just remember coming home from school, and that's all I would do. You know, like looking back, I kind of wish I'd understood more of like, oh, what's moderation, what's balance, you know,
Yeah, we
that
all
sort of
needed a
thing.
little bit of that.
Yeah, but you know, I think you learn your lessons.
Mm.
But yeah, I see it more as just like a hobby now. Or I think actually I think a good way to view it is like if you really want a reward at the end of the day, have a video game to play at the end of the day. You
Mm.
know, or you can do it during, but I prefer to get things done, get things sorted, and then getting to that point of, all right, I've done all I can, uh, done all I need to do today, and I just want to kick back. Like recently, I've been getting back into Civilization 6. Um,
Oh, I have Civ 6. We should. I've never played it, but
oh,
we
true,
should
yeah,
play it.
yeah, it's super chill. You just um, Gandhi can declare war on you and send nukes your way still, which is pretty fun. Um, so yeah, no, yeah, definitely we should play it. But yeah, that's how I'd like
That's how you'd
describe
frame it.
my experience with video games. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think it's an interesting point about the escape because I kind of feel that as well. I think for a lot of people they see it as a like non-gamers or like mobile gamers. They
Yeah.
kind of see
Yeah.
it as yeah, it's something that lacks moderation, that there's no positive benefits to it. And they're right and they're wrong. Because obviously all kids should have a moderated experience of video games. But I think it's that change in focus, right? From it's a draining activity that my kid does and they should be out throwing the football with their friends. It's an interesting discussion because I think you really need to think of it as if you're someone that comes home from work and flicks on the TV and watches 4 hours of TV and you love that, do that. You know, that if that's your escape and your fun, relaxing thing, or if you invite over, pre-COVID or post-lockdown, 40 guests and you love that on a weekend, I can't think of anything worse. But like, that's fine for you too. But gaming for a lot of people is a activity that either relaxes them because they really need that relaxation and chill, or it's something that really brings up the adrenaline and they love. Like, and I'm talking more the like competitive gaming side or just having a laugh with friends. But it's I think it's an escape when you don't know who you are or you know who you are and you're not a social person, but you interact through games. Because I don't know, Ryan, if you feel this, but like I feel like I became more social through high school as I gamed.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And you find you find other people that game and you
Mm.
go, oh, we could play a game together. And um yeah, and I think that's a really important thing, just that sort of bonding. Um, you're both experiencing the same thing, pretty
Mm.
much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You find people that you can connect with. I also feel like your skills in communication become a bit better because if you feel comfortable talking to randoms online in some game or talking with your small friend group, and
Mm,
you really do practice that those communication skills. Yes, it's much easier because, as we said before, you can be anonymous or you can, you don't really game with your webcam on, or you, yeah, but it's an opportunity to practice humanizing, and that's what it should be. Now, some people are monsters when they play video games and destroy social connections, but yeah, I think it's as long as it's in moderation, it's a great escape. Um, So yeah, right. Three most influential games on your life.
oh.
Go,
Um.
go.
Okay.
No,
Well.
now.
Oh. Okay. Ooh, no. Okay. I'm pretty sure Minecraft would probably be one of them.
Oh, I missed
Um.
Minecraft on my list, and now I want to change my list.
Oh.
All right,
Oh.
whatever. You continue.
um. Skyrim. I think Skyrim influenced it. This is going to be a fairly basic. There's no. I don't usually play that many indie games.
Same.
But what's another one that kind of jumps out at me? I think just I just
Maybe
want to say
Fortnite.
Fortnite. No, no, I don't. Honestly, I don't like Fortnite. You know, I don't like.
The Lenient
That's my.
podcast does not approve of Fortnite. Fortnite sucks.
Yeah. Fortnite players, get out. We do not want you here.
Okay, but if you like the podcast, still like and follow and
Like
stuff.
and subscribe.
But then bugger off. We don't want you.
Yeah. um, yeah, Minecraft, Skyrim, and I think I would like to just say strategy games in general. Because I would play a variety. I'd play there was this great Lord of the Rings game. Just trying to remember. Battle for Middle Earth. Battle for Middle Earth 1 and 2.
I've never played that.
Magnifique. I'll if you come around, I'll give you the second one and just play a couple skirmishes and you'll find that it's actually it's really good. Like and they've
Wh-
got
What's a
oh,
comparable game? What kind of like? What's a
nothing.
similar game? It's nothing. It's too good. It's the best game that you'll ever play.
I'm actually convinced that you would like it. Like uh I think it's probably one of the best strategy games to date.
Oh,
Um
big call.
yeah, I like these big call
Big opinions only on this podcast.
yeah. Fortnite sucks. Battlefield 2, best game ever.
And yes,
Um,
Minecraft, best first person shooter has ever been released.
best first. um, yeah. Comparable game. Maybe a StarCraft game, but
Oh yeah.
it's it's fantasy. Oh, maybe Warcraft. Warcraft 3. Yeah. Maybe. You
Hold
know, I
on.
don't know. You're playing.
Warcraft 3 made by Activision Blizzard. Isn't that place on fire? We should probably just
Oh,
mention that that place is going through some very bad things. Speaking of harassment of women that we were talking about earlier,
oh, yeah. Actually, can you tell me just real quick? I've only heard bits and
I
pieces.
mostly heard it on Linus Tech Tips podcast, the WAN show. They were talking about a bit. It's essentially the state is taking an action against them in court for creating an unsafe workplace for women at Activision Blizzard. So there's a lot of practices that we won't go into because they're really weird, and I'll tell you after, Ryan. But
Okay.
really
Yeah.
sad situation in which things you really in the 21st century really shouldn't be subject to in a workplace, harassment wise. So I guess just shows there's still a lot of problems. Once you
Yeah.
fix
Yeah.
problems in some areas, they kind of get squished into some other areas, and it's like that ongoing fix. But I guess power of gaming. I don't know if you heard, but a lot of people are boycotting Activision Blizzard games in defiance of this. Like my friend, one of my friends, I said, "Oh, do you want to play Overwatch?" And she was like, "Nah, it's an Activision Blizzard game. I'm not playing it."
Wow.
And one of those like, "Oh wow," and it's like, fair enough.
And
Citizen
I'm
Power.
guessing World of Warcraft as well as being boycotted and
I heard Warcraft had like a massive player downturn. I can't quote the percentage, but like around this time, people just went, "Nah, that's it. It's the last straw. If you're gonna you've munted us for years with the subscription and the no updates. Oh, you're
wow.
also a bad company with your practices. We're done." You know,
Isn't that funny
interesting.
how like people quickly formed into a group and quickly
Mm.
said this is bad. Um
I think that's the
like
power of humanity. Hey,
yeah, yeah. And we all kind of collectively just went like, actually no, that's terrible. We know that's terrible. And yeah, like I'm just kind of pointing that out. Like, it's I kind of agree that, it's a good thing to kind of be like, actually, we want to create a better world than what you're creating there. Like,
mm,
yeah, yeah. I just find
interesting.
that pretty interesting. Um, how about for you, Joel? What's your top three influential games of your life?
I really okay. I'm adding a fourth.
Skyrim.
No, Skyrim's already there.
Oh, Minecraft.
Yeah, I just added Minecraft's. And Ryan and I bonded a lot over Minecraft, so I feel like that's kind of a game that where a lot of friendships were built and destroyed, um, in the same movement.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go number one, Zoo Tycoon slash Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Oh, yes.
For me, this was kind of like my intro into gaming because when you're a young kid and your parents look at like what games can I buy my kid or when you're vetting that kind of thing, these games feel very innocent and they are. But it was like a I guess like a gateway drug because it just started off as such a immersive thing and something that you actually cared about. I guess a bit like a I never had a Tamagotchi, but I assume that it's like that when you have a zoo, you want to keep coming back to it and like checking on it and like working on it and improving it. And you get that like weird fake baby experience of like having something you really care about. Like Ryan and I care about this podcast. What a segue. Uh yeah, and I found that
Right,
really great.
Skyrim.
What a segue master I am.
Yeah. I
Um And then Minecraft, of course, we just talked about that. Friendships were built and destroyed. I feel like you and I played a lot of survival, but I could be.
yes, we did. And did we do
I think we did
did
some
we do
Hunger Games, right?
Hunger Games? Did we do adventure maps?
I think we did. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
no, we did a lot of that because I really liked that because it kind of brought some needed like story to Minecraft. Because whilst there is kind
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
story, at the end of the day, survival is just like make your way to the Ender Dragon and destroy it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We
um,
should actually do that again. We should do it. Try find a good adventure map and go along with it.
Ryan, stop! You're pulling at my heartstrings right now. I'll move on to Skyrim because we can both talk about
Oh
this.
yeah.
Skyrim for
Yeah.
me was kind of like a shock that video games could be like a really immersive story and like lived experience. You really push yourself through. Well, you're pushed through Skyrim. You interact with NPCs that feel well, back then felt more lifelike than we'd ever really like seen. They started to, when you look back now, there's quite a bit of jank.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot of memories made. It,
I would agree to, that, you can play it now and kind of look at the jank, but I think it still ages pretty well in
mm,
terms of just the amount of exploration that you can do, and it's not like I recently played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and yeah, that's a really big world and beautiful and everything, but it felt like there was something missing in a lot of the exploration. I couldn't really pinpoint it, but with Skyrim, it feels like it the combined experience of the music and the sounds and you're playing this character and you've kind of got this little tiny backstory for this character, what this character's been up to, and um, yeah, I think yeah. How do you feel looking back? How many hours do you think you put into Skyrim?
Censor this bit, editor. No. um, I this is the sad there's a sad reality for me in Skyrim because I played probably 250, 300 hours of Skyrim and didn't do everything. And then I lost my game save. My hard
Oh,
drive died and I didn't have a backup. Look, I was a child. Leave me alone. Um but yeah, so I missed out on doing I never did Thieves Guild and I still to this day haven't done Thieves Guild.
what?
I still to this day haven't done the Imperial or Stormcloak. I did like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So right now I am actually playing Skyrim Special Edition with like heaps of mods, but like I'm playing it again, and honestly, it feels like graphically, obviously, it's good because it's the Special Edition and I've added shaders and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
the game still feels full. Like you can and I added a bunch of like random NPCs and things, which makes it even
yeah.
feel more full. But I feel like with these mods, it makes it too full. I feel like Skyrim had a good
Ooh.
balance of the world felt really open and big, but it also felt populated.
Mm.
Um, but
But
yeah,
not too populated, right? Like
mm,
it still wasn't like these huge cities. Like I'm kind of thinking, I only played a little bit of it, but The Witcher 3,
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't like that where you entering this huge city of wonder and everything. No, it was more like, there's Riverwood and then there's Whiterun, and Whiterun only had what, 50 people?
Oh
You
yeah,
think?
total. No,
Yeah.
no, that had to be like the absolute maximum of people in Whiterun.
Yeah.
And if there were
Yeah.
any more, they were just like duplicated guards.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
definitely.
but I think that's probably we can draw some broad strokes there on role playing games. That role playing games gave us an interesting escape and experience because I feel like as a teen and a little bit earlier, like I was very unsure of myself, not a lot of self confidence,
Mhm.
and that like wanting to talk to people in real life and really push those boundaries and have great experiences, which would have been great. Um, but I felt like role playing games gave me an escape to be who I wanted to be, like or what I'm pushing towards. So let's be honest, when you role play, you're always a better version of yourself, right? And I've talked about this quite a bit with Dungeons and Dragons. Tune in for that episode because I really want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. But I feel like if you set these kind of ideals and like, oh, this is what a hero is like, fake hero, you kind of gives you that little bit of inspiration. Like I think of like the Marvel characters and the Avengers and that sort of thing, how that's given now multiple generations some kind of something to look at and be like, oh, that's what a yeah, it's interesting. What's been your experience of role playing games and how have they helped you or pushed you in some direction?
Um, well, I'm just thinking about more what you just said, and it makes me think of, have you heard of Joseph Campbell? Um, the He's the guy that made The Hero's Journey, or like, uh, so you actually see this in Star Wars, and I think you would see it in plenty of movies, actually, the Marvel movies, and
Is he the one that
it's this
wrote that thing about a good stories and it's like a graph? Is that the guy that did that where it's like or maybe it's like modern people visualizing it, but I think I have seen what you're saying of like it's like the hero's journey of right before the dawn and
Yeah, it's
is
kind of
that
like that,
yeah.
from what I remember, they start off in a comfortable spot, but they've got that call to adventure. Think Luke Skywalker. He's looking out at the suns and almost, picturing what it's like outside of what he's already known, and then he gets kind of forced into the unknown by his parents dying, and spoilers for Star Wars 40 years ago or whatever.
You've
Um,
just spoiled a beloved classic.
yeah. Um, yeah, and so he gets forced out into the universe pretty much and has to navigate on his own, as well
Mm,
as meeting other little friends, and they kind of go through this journey. And um, yeah, I just think a good and you can actually kind of track it in a lot of like Norse mythology and Greek mythology and lots of other mythologies in the world, where the stories um, of their gods pretty much is all about them becoming heroes. And I think there's always going to be a part of us that really likes that sort of hero, and we can almost picture ourselves in
mm,
that role, and or at least striving to be that. And I think
that's
a
so
really
true.
good, yeah, and I think Skyrim um, really really puts you into that place of like you're not you're not like the ultimate hero yet,
Mm,
um, and um, and
you're
you
just
learn these
just a
new
paddy one.
skills. Yeah, you're a constant student, but then at some point you realize like, oh my gosh, I just saved the world, you know? Um, Even though they don't really put a time limit of when you will save the world.
Yeah, you don't have
Uh,
to save the world at any pace. There's no rush. There's
yeah. Yeah, I was actually talking with one of my friends the other day, and he said he started a new Skyrim save, and he just doesn't go down the Dragonborn path at all. He pretends to be like a simple farmer.
I think a lot of people do that. I saw like a poll that was like how many people actually played the main storyline, and it was like there was a split between people who were just like, I'll get to it, and people who were like, oh yeah, I did that first. Let's be I'll be honest, I did the first time I played Skyrim, I did the Dragonborn from start to finish because I really
Yeah,
connected with
yeah.
that story. But I feel like now I'm playing it again, I'm like, no, I just can't be asked to go and like fight this dragon and like just can't be asked.
So, what do you do instead now? Like, well, I'm actually interested in like where do you find that you put your character in the world?
I'm slowly pushing the Dragonborn story, but like I think the stories that connected with me most were probably I really like the Dark Brotherhood storyline. I th-
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that pushed an interesting line of like you join a band of anti-heroes of villains really. But
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
see some of those characters have story arcs towards the light, and I think that was
Mm.
a really interesting storyline. What about you?
So,
Were you a Thieves Guild boy?
yeah, I think I'm trying to think of I think my very first character, I've made plenty throughout the years. My very first character was just a stereotypical warrior. Um,
Some kind of
I just
barbarian.
Yeah, yeah, my D&D character pretty much. No, he was just like this really built Imperial, and he joined up with the Imperials. He joined up with the army. He just really loved that, and adventuring and just soldiering on pretty much, just very brute. But then my very next character, yeah, it was very thieves guild, and uh and yeah, I think there comes a point. I think what Skyrim did really well was that like there's no morality system pretty much. There's
No.
no like it's not like Fallout where it's like there's good karma and bad karma. It's just it's all kind of relative, and it
You
which is
set your own
typical.
path. Like,
Yeah, yeah, typical of a very fantasy genre.
mm,
And uh although there are some fantasy things where it does have a clear good and bad. Um but you get into these different factions of Skyrim, and you find that like there's just good and bad people, in
Mm,
both in every Stormcloaks, Imperials, Dark Brotherhood. Um, even I think you even meet some bandits. I think some bandits
yeah.
or you read their journals and everything, and
They're
you
just like
find
poor
like
people trying to like live a life and trying to steal some life back. And yeah,
yeah.
I feel as well like Skyrim really inspired storytelling for me. Did you find yourself
Mm.
like kind of living your own story that wasn't really part of the Skyrim lore?
Yeah, I really, yeah, I think. Have you ever created a backstory to one of your
Oh
characters?
yeah. Oh yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Like
Do you remember what, like one of the characters that you made?
I think there I can't really remember any of them, but they would have been all very stereotypical because you always think you're creative when you like go to write something, and then you'll just
Yeah.
write like like a mishmash of The Dark Knight and The Lord of the Rings and like all the movies you love. You just put them into one like little box. But I feel like Skyrim was probably the start of my love for storytelling and using stories as like a bringing people together, and it's probably my D&D backstory. I feel like Dungeons and Dragons probably my need for that in my life and my love for that probably starts with Skyrim. Um because there I'm being told a beautiful story and I'm being inspired that oh wow, this story moved like a generation of gamers. What can I make a story that moves my group of mates? And like that, and that's kind of the interesting thing. And we'll talk about when we come to Dungeons and Dragons. But I feel like Dungeons and Dragons is just like any of these role playing games. It's a way to grow, create memories with friends, and then have something to laugh about. I really want like the fallout of our Dungeons and Dragons to be that there'll be a time when someone will just go, "Oh, do you remember when like Ryan rushed into the cathedral and like just hit someone? Like we were all stealth, and then he just like he popped a rage and just ran." uh, those kind of things are like, and I think that's gaming overall, right? You build memories at the end of the day.
Yeah, those little tidbits of like, because I think especially in fantasy, it's just that sort of, it's got predictable elements, but then it's got that perfect amount. Like as soon as it's almost as soon as you get into that fantasy realm, it's got that perfect amount of predictability, and like there's some order to things, but then there's also that part where there's just completely unpredictable things that happen, and
Yeah.
you're caught off guard, and you have to navigate how to do this, or um, and that's the whole sort of like growth, sort of hero's journey. You
Mm.
constantly, there's familiar things all the time, but then there's also completely unfamiliar and completely random and unpredictable things that happen to you, and you kind of, yeah, you have to navigate that with your friends. Oh well, or like if you're just playing Skyrim on your own.
Yeah, you have those like internal struggles and like um yeah, that thing about problem solving is interesting too. I think your problem solving skills go up a lot, and you can also I'll link in the description somewhere when we do the Dungeons and Dragons podcast, TED talk about how Dungeons and Dragons made someone become a more confident and strong-minded person in real life. And I think there's those interesting parallels you can draw about being challenged and becoming more of a leader and wanting to command the situation instead of being the situation dictating, what your life looks like. And I think all of those things are really cool lessons that role-playing games kind of bring out and teach you. Before we like go on, my final game I couldn't
Oh yes,
decide
sorry.
on. I couldn't decide on. I couldn't decide on it. So I've gone two games that are essentially the same game. So Counter Strike and Valorant, because they're essentially the
Yeah,
same video
yeah.
game if you played either of them.
Right,
Um,
right.
so I think this was a change for me in terms of like I these days played less role playing games. But I think I would pick up a role playing game if I could play it with like you, Ryan, or like play a multiplayer online kind of role playing game. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of makes
Like
me want to
like
play New
Skyrim
World.
or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
New World. Oh. I've heard some mixed things about New World,
So
you
have
know?
I. I've heard if you like World of Warcraft, you'll like it, and I was like, well, I had no interest in playing World of Warcraft. But I feel like I need to find some kind of like online or co-op role playing game because like my best experiences these days of role playing is sharing it with someone um in the moment because you can share stories later. But I feel like if you can kind of I don't know, did you play A Way Out, that EA game about prison?
Oh, I know of it, but I haven't played it.
Like that's something I would replay with someone again because it's like you share that interesting tale, but also with that game, you play as two, like each person plays as one character. I'd like to see the perspective from the other character because it's like one of those really strong storytelling games. Anyway, I'm losing my train of thought. So yeah, I moved into more of like from 2013 or so, I moved into like more competitive first person shooters, and that was more my focus. And I like have played, I played like 1,600 hours of CS:GO in my life, like something ridiculous.
Nice, nice.
Um, and then now into Valorant, I'm probably up to like the 500 mark. But it kind of competitive FPS for me kind of became like my sport, um, because I love touch football, but that's kind of all I really play. And especially with like lockdown and moving into not being able to play a lot of sport, I found Valorant as one of those like an exhibition for my skills. You
Yeah, yeah.
you grow, you learn, and then you can like you get that adrenaline rush out of competitive first person shooters.
Do you
Um,
find that it's like a that need like, I feel like everybody has this, like, that sort of need for competency, like, you need to,
yeah,
exert that, like, "Okay, I can hone these skills and then apply them," you know?
yeah,
Um,
and the journey's like that great part of like oh you want to learn. You know, if I'm playing Sova and Valorant, I'll be like, oh, I really want to learn more darts to do, or like you focus in on one thing and then you feel like you're making progress on something, and like I think that's kind of part of it as well. But I also think it that kind of led me down the I really like esports, and I think being playing something competitively even one time kind of gives you that appreciation for what professional gamers do, and then the experience. Like I was so keen in like 2019 to go to a Counter Strike major, and there was one coming in Australia, and I couldn't go. And then
oh,
lockdown like started in like end of 2019, like early. When was that? Was that like April 2020? Anyway, something around there.
yeah, somewhere around there, yeah.
Um, and that kind of ended all of that like in person experience. But yeah, I think people find different things in gaming. Like I have that real competitive side that I just want to play 8 competitive ranked matches of Valorant right now and win. And then there's those times when I want to play Rocket League against bots, or I want to play some quiet, slow game and just kind of enjoy it, or I want to play like a slower first person shooter or some kind of experience. So
So do you find that video games can really satisfy and hone in on those times, those different needs that are cycling
mm.
through all the time? Yeah,
I think
yeah,
you
like for
grow,
you.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like as you grow, you have well, you clearly have different interests, like and you see that as well in your TV and movie taste, which interestingly I've kind of moved away from. Like I watch a lot less TV and I watch a lot less movies and I'm gaming more. Um, because I think something as well, I think a lot of people think that gaming is a very passive activity, and it can be. Like it really can be. But in something where you're really invested or it's competitive or whatever, it's a very active like role. Um, you kind of it's like being immersed in a story, but you're playing it and you're able to kind of shape it. And I think that's why like our Dungeons and Dragons group's so into D&D is that like agency you get in the story. You get to do things with it. So yeah, I think gaming kind of fills different voids through your life, just like someone who really likes music or really likes sport. I think you go through phases and it satisfies and scratches different itches.
Yeah, yeah, and that so, yeah, we've got that competitive and we've got the more, I guess I could call it like meditative
Mm,
ones, and
no,
then you've got
100%.
the more social, just connecting ones. It's almost like, what is it? Like video games. Do you feel like video games is an art form?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
an expression of what it's like to be human.
That's when the games are good. Hey, you can feel that someone's poured they're all into making it. Yeah, that as you say, like a human lived experience. And then on the opposite side, you can really feel where there's no heart, there's no humanity in a game. Um, talking about you, EA. But yeah, I think um the human aspect of anything is kind of the interesting part, I guess. Like, if you're really into art, you really like looking at that. I'm really not into art, but you find, I guess, everyone has their own things they enjoy to find humanity in. Some people watch TV or movies and really like seeing, as we were talking about earlier, like a hero's path. They really like that, or some people go into video games to not have any humanity, and that's why they play Call of Duty Warzone for 12 hours straight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's
Um,
interesting. Your point about humanity.
yeah, and I believe that, I'm just thinking like there's people. I guess we're making kind of blanket statements. I just like making these sort of blanket statements, but in saying that though, I see the sort of can you see the sort of pattern of, people play different games all the time, not even in a video game. There's always little games that we're always playing, like, I don't know, what's the I
You're
reckon
getting
you could
very
call.
like real right now. You're getting into that like
Yeah. Um, I reckon, you could even say that, just eating breakfast is a game in and of itself. If you
it's
like,
a
so
quest. It's a very minor quest on the main quest line of life, and I guess you choose
right,
your
yeah.
battles, right?
And think about the survival games. You're feeling like, okay, I'm feeling hungry. And so you go like, okay, I will go and find in this capitalist world a supermarket to get things, to get this food and whatever. And whoa.
Oh my gosh,
There it
Ryan
goes.
just threw his webcam across the table. I'm leaving this in.
Things.
This is the kind of professionalism I have to deal with. Okay, hold on. Let me fix you up there. There we go. Ah, I've got to move him about, fix him up. Wait, are you talking? You're not inputting anything.
Hello. There
Oh,
we
there we
go.
go. Wow.
Sorry.
Oh my. Oh, okay. Uh,
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about all the folks at home to hear
no,
and see
you
that.
see. This is the thing. He's not sorry. He's not sorry.
Yeah, that's
we'll
right.
we'll have to wrap up this episode, but I think overall what we're saying is that video games, they transcend. I think it's interesting when people say, "Oh, something's just a hobby." It's like that's such a third person looking in kind of perspective. Whatever your like passion is, or something that makes you feel something that you don't feel normally, as long as it's legal, um, I think that's all. Then kind of just part of life. You find the things you enjoy and you do those things. You find things you don't enjoy, sometimes you've still got to do those things because that is growth or that's your job or whatever it is. But if you have a passion, don't feel bad about it, right? It's feel proud of it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Some people find, I know some people that just will just draw. They'll just do coloring in, like, as if, just attack my mic. Um, I know it sounds like kind of like almost childish, but I know some people that just say, I find coloring in to be so good. It's like the best thing ever. And for me, I go, really? Like,
Yeah, you can't
oh,
understand it because it's like it's not the same. Like you don't get the same thing out of it that they do.
yeah, yeah. But they could be drawing and thinking about all sorts of different things, um, and kind of it's almost it's almost like a selfless thing. I don't
Mm,
know. You're not thinking about what's going on in your life. You're just thinking about, well, I don't know, the colors here, and oh, I could use this color, and then, or even in a video game, you're thinking more about like, okay, so there's this quest here, and they need help over there, or yeah, it's I guess, escapism. It can
mm,
be good, yeah, yeah,
100%.
just not to a hectic amount, I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't escape too much. Well, we're getting really philosophical here. We should save this for an episode where Ryan talks about his passions in like the mind. But you don't want to escape too much because then you miss out on the really good parts of life in general.
Yes, yeah.
Balance is good, kids.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, okay. I think we should wrap this episode up because we could talk forever. So if you're liking this, you should follow this podcast and be alerted when
Do
we
it.
make another episode. Do it. Do it now.
Yes. Come
If you
on.
if you haven't gone right now and liked this YouTube video or liked the podcast on Spotify, I do not like you.
Yes.
Well, I guess that's how we're gonna end it. Thanks for listening to the Lead In podcast. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.